Skills are stocks. Invest in what compounds forever. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. You can fake credentials. You can buy attention. You can luck into opportunity. But you cannot counterfeit compound growth. It either shows up, or it doesn't. Imagine two people starting the same job on the same day. One masters the bare minimum, relying on charm, shortcuts, and borrowed scripts. The other spends quiet mornings refining skills most never bother with, listening deeply, writing clearly, thinking slowly. A year in, the difference is subtle. 2 years, still close. But 5 years down the line, it's not even a comparison. One is replaceable. The other is a linchpin. The gap wasn't talent. It was how they invested. This book is about that gap. It's about the quiet assets you build that don't shout, but compound. And it's about why most people ignore them. Skills, like stocks, fluctuate in value. Some peak early and fade fast. Others are slow growers, boring, reliable, seemingly insignificant, until they suddenly tilt your entire life forward. The trick is seeing their worth before the world does. Dr. Stephen Covey once wrote, "If I really want to improve my situation, I can work on the one thing over which I have control, myself." That is the heart of this book. Not self-help in the motivational sense, but self-investment in the strategic one. A practical philosophy of leverage, earned, not inherited. The chapters ahead are not about hacks or shortcuts. They are invitations to rethink how you spend your most precious capital, your attention, your effort, your time. You'll explore how to identify compounder skills, how to let go of depreciating ones, and how to build a portfolio of abilities that reward you long after the effort is made. You won't find fluff here. What you will find are patterns, backed by insight, made vivid through story, made actionable by design. If you're looking to get rich overnight, this isn't your book. But if you're ready to build a version of yourself that can't be disrupted, outsourced, or ignored, then keep reading, because the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards compounding. Chapter 1: The Invisible Portfolio. Why Skills Are Your True Wealth. A man walks into a room. He doesn't announce his presence. He doesn't boast about his resume. But in 10 minutes he asks one question that reframes the entire meeting. Heads turn. Notes are taken. He leaves quietly, but something about him lingers. That wasn't charisma. It wasn't power. It was skill, compounded over time, invisible until it was undeniable. Most people imagine success as a sudden windfall, the right opportunity, the perfect timing, a breakthrough moment. But the truth is more patient. The most valuable things grow slowly. They're not lottery wins, they're investments. This is the quiet truth that separates those who build lasting advantage from those chasing quick wins. Every skill you cultivate is like buying stock in yourself. Some fade, some flourish, but a rare few compound silently, steadily, endlessly. Think of your current skills like assets in a hidden portfolio. Some you picked up because you had to: how to fill out tax forms, how to send an email, how to write a decent essay. Others you chose, often by accident: learning guitar in high school, picking up Photoshop for a one-time project, dabbling in a coding bootcamp. You've accumulated them, but you've likely never audited them. Yet these assets determine everything: how much opportunity you attract, how effectively you lead, how creatively you solve, how deeply you connect. Unlike financial assets, which rise or fall with the whims of a volatile market, skills compound from within. They appreciate through use. Writing one article won't change your life, but writing every day for a year. Suddenly, the doors open. Conversations shift, people take notice. A skill that was once invisible becomes impossible to ignore. But not all skills are created equal. Some are like beanie babies, hyped for a moment, worthless in the long run. Others are like index funds, reliable, boring, but deeply effective over time. A trending software might get you hired next year. But clear thinking, persuasive writing, and emotional regulation, these aren't fads. These are blue-chip assets. Their dividends show up everywhere: in meetings, in negotiations, in relationships, in resilience. Still, most people spend their attention like gamblers. They chase novelty. They learn a little of everything and master nothing. But the world rewards depth, not dabbling. Every minute you spend honing a compounder skill is a minute your future self multiplies. Small efforts, repeated consistently, create exponential returns. The tragedy is not that people lack talent, it's because they misallocate their time. They treat skills like clutter, not capital. They confuse motion with progress, busyness with growth. But growth doesn't shout. It whispers. It stacks quietly behind the scenes, and one day, without warning, it shows up and rewrites your trajectory. So what's in your invisible portfolio? Which skills have quietly appreciated under your care? Which ones have rusted from neglect? If your career stalled tomorrow, which skill would you fall back on, and would it catch you or crack beneath you? You don't need more hours, you need more intention, or invest in what compounds. Choose one high-yield skill and show up for it daily, not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently. Watch what happens. Next, we'll explore the skills that yield the greatest returns, ones that pay dividends not just in dollars, but in options, confidence, and clarity. Skills that never expire. Skills that build a life no resume ever could. Chapter 2: Compounders, the skills that keep on giving. Not all skills are created equal. Some expire, some plateau. But a rare few keep growing, long after you've stopped actively working on them. These are compounders, and they behave like silent engines, generating value in the background of everything you do. When you find one, you don't just build a skill, you acquire leverage. Imagine learning how to write clearly. At first it seems isolated. You craft better emails, edit a memo, articulate a thought more precisely. But over time, this one skill infiltrates everything. You negotiate more persuasively. You think more clearly. You influence more effectively. The return on writing doesn't just add, it multiplies. It teaches you how to structure thoughts, how to shape ideas, how to connect with others. It's not just a skill, it's a force multiplier. The most powerful compounders have 3 traits. First, they're durable. That means they won't become obsolete with the next trend. Second, they're transferable. You can use them across fields, industries, and roles. Third, they're scalable. As you improve, the opportunities they unlock grow with you, not against you. Or communication, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, problem solving, learning itself. These aren't niche tools, they are the infrastructure for lifelong growth. Consider emotional intelligence. It doesn't show up on a certificate or a resume, but it influences everything: how you manage conflict, lead teams, handle stress, even raise a child. A person who listens well, regulates their reactions, and reads a room accurately is often 10 steps ahead, without needing to raise their voice or their hand. The ROI is invisible, but it accumulates. Or take the ability to learn quickly. This isn't just about reading faster or remembering more. It's about developing a system of curiosity, reflection, and iteration. In a world where industries evolve overnight, learning how to learn is the ultimate hedge against irrelevance. While others scramble to catch up, the lifelong learner adapts in real time. The irony is that compounder skills rarely feel urgent. No one demands you take a course on listening. No boss writes develop strategic thinking on your to-do list. But these are the skills that differentiate the amateur from the exceptional. They're slow to build but impossible to ignore once developed, and the earlier you start, the greater the payoff. There's a quiet power in depth. A well-chosen skill, practiced consistently, becomes a form of gravity. It draws opportunities, trust, and influence toward you, and unlike tools or credentials, it cannot be taken away. It's not rented, it's owned. But here's the trap: we often mistake novelty for value. We chase shiny objects, apps, hacks, shortcuts, hoping for an edge. Compounders aren't flashy. They're foundational. They often feel boring at first. But that boredom is a signal, not a flaw. It means you're building something that lasts. Ask yourself, which skill, if improved steadily over the next 5 years, would change your trajectory? Which ability would make every other effort more effective? That's your compounder. Protect it, prioritize it. Let it anchor your time, your practice, your energy. You don't need to master 100 things. You need to choose a handful that grow with you. Depth beats breadth. Longevity beats trend. Choose compounders, and your future self will thank you in ways your present self can't yet imagine. In the next chapter, we'll look at the other side of the equation: skills that depreciate. Just as some assets compound, others quietly cost you more than they give. Knowing the difference is the first step in rebalancing your portfolio. Chapter 3: Depreciating Assets: What to Let Go of. There's a strange comfort in clinging to the familiar. You mastered it. You earned it. You remember the effort it took to learn it. So you protect it, defend it, and carry it with pride. But not all effort compounds. Some skills fade with time, becoming liabilities dressed as achievements. And the longer you hold on to them, the more they cost you without you realizing it. Think of the person who still boasts about typing 100 words per minute, or the manager who prides herself on mastering the fax machine, or the employee who spent years fine-tuning a spreadsheet template no one else uses anymore. These skills once had value. They were signals of competence. But the world shifted. And now, clinging to them is like holding shares in a company that stopped innovating years ago. Depreciating skills don't always scream irrelevance. They erode quietly. One day you realize the tools you once used daily haven't been opened in months. The processes you used to optimize no longer exist. The language you spoke fluently sounds outdated in a room full of new thinkers. It's not that you've failed, it's that you've stopped updating. This isn't a condemnation of age or tradition. Some old skills are timeless. But many were context-dependent. They made sense in a certain era, under certain constraints. Once those constraints change technology, culture, and industry, the skill loses its utility. The tragedy is that many people continue to double down on these sinking assets. They confuse experience with relevance. But longevity alone isn't proof of value. It's what the skill still does for you, and for others, that determines its worth. There's also emotional investment. You don't want to let go of what you fought to learn. It feels like betrayal. But just like in finance, it keeps portfolios bloated with dead weight. Just because you spent years mastering something doesn't mean it deserves your future attention. Respect the effort, but retire the asset. And beware the illusion of partial usefulness. Some skills aren't completely obsolete, but they've lost their leverage. They create motion, but not momentum. They keep you busy, but not better. A tool that once made you efficient now makes you rigid. A system that once brought clarity now creates drag. These are skills that fossilize your thinking. So how do you tell what to let go of? Ask a simple question: does this skill generate new opportunity, or merely preserve old comfort? If it's the latter, it may be time to divest. The most effective people aren't just acquiring, they're pruning. They shed what no longer serves so they can reinvest in what still grows. This doesn't mean forgetting or erasing what you know. It means reframing. The value isn't always in the tool, it's in what it taught you. The discipline, the pattern recognition, the resilience, those can transfer. But the mechanism itself may not be worth keeping. Let the lesson stay while the method evolves. Rebalancing isn't glamorous. It means admitting that some of your effort went into short-lived gains. But clarity is worth the discomfort. When you cut the decaying branches, the roots of growth get stronger. You create space for new skills to take root and thrive. In the next chapter, we'll look at the most limited resource in your portfolio, your attention, because knowing what to learn is only half the battle. Where you direct your focus determines what actually grows. Chapter 4: Attention is Capital. Where you spend it matters. If skills are stocks, then attention is capital. It's the currency you invest to grow them, but unlike money, attention is non-renewable. You don't get more each day. You only get to choose how to spend it. And that choice, made moment to moment, shapes the compound interest of your future. Modern life is a buffet of distractions. Notifications buzz. Headlines flash. Meetings stack. Algorithms seduce. In a world where everything is trying to steal your focus, attention isn't just scarce, it's under siege. Most people aren't investing their attention, they're leaking it. And just like leaking money, small losses compound into massive deficits. Attention works like sunlight in a garden. Where it shines, things grow. Where it's scattered, nothing roots. You can't grow deep skills in fragmented soil. 5-minute fragments on 10 different things will never match an hour of focused presence on one. Yet most people build their days in fragments and wonder why nothing compounds. Cognitive science backs this up. The concept of attention residue explains why switching tasks leaves a mental shadow. When you bounce from writing an email to scrolling social media to checking a spreadsheet, Your brain drags remnants of each task into the next. Focus splinters, performance dips, and deep learning never takes hold. Multitasking doesn't multiply, it divides. There's also a hidden tax, the opportunity cost of misallocated attention. Every moment spent on low return skills is a moment not spent on compounders. The skill you could have owned, the insight you could have gained, the connection you could have made. These costs are invisible, but they shape everything from career paths to confidence levels. Attention is also shaped by the environment. You become what you repeatedly attend to. If your digital life is designed for distraction, it becomes a garden of weeds. If your habits train you to react instead of reflect, your mental capital is spent before the day begins. But a curated environment, quiet, clean, intentional, can double your attention budget without adding a single hour. To manage your attention is to manage your trajectory. This begins with awareness. Conduct an attention audit. Where does your focus go each day? What platforms, people, and problems consume it? Which activities drain you? Which nourishes you? Clarity precedes control. When you see the patterns, you can start to shift them. The next step is to build an allocation strategy. Just like a financial portfolio, your attention should be diversified but not diluted. Dedicate blocks of uninterrupted time to high-yield skills. Use timers. Use silence. Use friction. Turn off what pulls you away. Stack your environment in favor of depth. Focus isn't just about willpower, it's about design. This isn't about becoming a productivity robot. It's about sovereignty. Owning your attention means reclaiming your time, your energy, and your growth. It means choosing what compounds, not just reacting to what's loud. The most successful people don't have more time than others. They just allocate better. They know that mastering one high-yield skill, be it storytelling, analysis, or design, is worth more than dabbling in 10. They treat their attention like investors treat capital, cautiously, strategically, relentlessly. So ask yourself, are you investing attention or spending it? What would change if your focus followed your future instead of your fear, your potential instead of your panic? In the next chapter, we'll explore the most powerful meta skill of all, the ability to learn. Because attention is the fuel, but learning is the engine, and once you optimize both, compounding becomes unstoppable. Chapter 5: Learning How to Learn, the meta skill of all growth. In a world where information doubles faster than ever before, knowing how to learn is no longer optional, it's the foundation upon which every other skill is built. Industries shift. Tools evolve. Jobs disappear. But the learner survives. Better yet, the learner thrives. Because while others are adapting late, the learner is evolving early. Traditional education taught us to memorize, to regurgitate, to pass, but it rarely taught us how to actually learn. It ignored curiosity. It punished experimentation. It treated knowledge as a static download, not a dynamic process. As a result, many adults still associate learning with boredom, pressure, or performance. But real learning feels different. It's alive. It's self-driven. It compounds. The most valuable skill in today's economy isn't coding, marketing, or finance. It's adaptability. And the engine behind adaptability is meta-learning. The ability to deconstruct a subject, identify the core principles, practice deliberately, and transfer insights across domains. In short, learning how to learn. Great learners don't consume information passively. They engage with it actively. They ask questions, test ideas, apply immediately. They understand that information is only the first layer. Transformation happens through interaction. Reading a book is input. Teaching it to someone else is proof. Consuming isn't learning, producing is. One principle at the heart of effective learning is spaced repetition. Instead of cramming, you revisit key ideas over time, allowing them to sink deeper into memory. This is how the brain was built to absorb, through reinforcement, not pressure. Another powerful tool is retrieval practice, testing yourself rather than reviewing notes. By pulling information out of your memory, you strengthen the neural pathways, making recall faster and sharper. Then there's deliberate practice. Not just doing the thing, but doing it with focused intention and feedback. It means pushing into discomfort, identifying weaknesses, and refining the edges. This is where growth happens. not in the warm comfort of competence, but in the cold exposure of stretch. Learning also thrives on models and mental frameworks. Instead of memorizing data points, great learners build structures. They understand concepts like systems, feedback loops, and first principles. They reduce complexity by organizing it. And once a structure is built, it can be reused across skills, contexts, and disciplines. But perhaps the most overlooked part of learning is reflection. Time spent learning is only as valuable as the insights extracted from it. Pausing to ask, what did I notice? What surprised me? Where did I struggle? What can I apply? Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without it, we're just collecting dots without connecting them. Curiosity is the fuel behind it all. The best learners don't need permission or reward. They follow questions. They chase edges. They stay humble enough to say I don't know, and brave enough to say but I can find out. In a world obsessed with having answers, they fall in love with better questions. Once you develop this meta skill, the entire world becomes a classroom. A podcast becomes a case study. A setback becomes a lab. A conversation becomes a masterclass. Every moment turns into raw material for growth. So ask yourself, when's the last time you learned something deliberately? Not reactively, not out of necessity, but because you chose to. And if you mastered the skill of mastering skills, what would now be possible that wasn't before? In the next chapter, we'll explore the concept of 10x skills, those rare abilities that don't just add to your toolkit but multiply the value of everything you already know. If learning is your engine, these are the accelerators. Chapter 6: The 10x Skills, Unfair Advantages in Every Domain. Some skills don't just add value, they amplify it. They act like multipliers, increasing the return on everything else you know. These are the 10x skills. They don't replace technical expertise, they elevate it. They make your knowledge more visible, your work more impactful, and your decisions more effective. Master just one, and you shift from incremental improvement to exponential advantage. Imagine a builder with a rare tool that speeds up every part of construction. The tool doesn't lay bricks or mix cement, but it improves the process across the board. That's what 10x skills do. They don't belong to one domain. They shape how you operate in all of them. And while they take time to master, their payoff echoes across decades. Take writing, for example. It's more than grammar or clarity. Writing is structured thought. The better you write, the better you think. Whether crafting a pitch, designing a strategy, or explaining a vision, strong writing sharpens your logic and amplifies your influence. It turns vague ideas into action plans, and action plans into alignment. It's not a luxury, it's leverage. Then there's public speaking. The ability to stand in front of a room, articulate ideas, and command attention is a superpower in disguise. It breeds confidence, invites trust, and catalyzes leadership. Every great communicator started as a nervous one. The difference was repetition and refinement. Public speaking forces clarity, and clarity builds credibility. Another is persuasion. Not manipulation, but the ethical art of influencing decisions. Whether you're selling a product, defending a proposal, or negotiating a raise, persuasion is the bridge between vision and buy-in. It requires empathy, timing, and precision. When done right, it makes resistance dissolve and collaboration rise. Systems thinking is a less visible but equally potent 10x skill. It's the ability to see how parts connect, to spot loops, bottlenecks, and unintended consequences. Most problems aren't linear. They're nested inside complex systems. And without the lens to see patterns, people waste time treating symptoms. Systems thinkers solve root causes. They don't just fix, they redesign. And don't overlook the underrated power of asking great questions. In a culture addicted to fast answers, questions are tools of depth. A well-placed question can shift an entire conversation, reveal a hidden problem, or spark a breakthrough. It's not just what you know, it's what you uncover. What separates 10x skills from others isn't just their broad utility, it's how they compound with everything else you've already built. They sit on top of your technical knowledge, amplifying its clarity. They sit beneath your leadership, strengthening your trust. They sit beside your relationships, enhancing your ability to connect. These are the keystones that hold the arch together. And they're trainable. No one is born a great writer, speaker, persuader, or systems thinker. These skills reward deliberate, focused, uncomfortable practice. They require feedback. They demand patience, but the return is generational. You don't just become more skilled, you become more visible, more trusted, more catalytic. The danger is thinking you're too specialized to need them, that your work speaks for itself. But in reality, it's rarely the best work that wins. It's the best communicated, the best positioned, the best framed. 10x skills don't replace excellence, they ensure it's recognized. So, audit your current toolkit. Which of these amplifiers are missing? Which one, if improved even slightly, would unlock a different level of output, influence, or opportunity? You don't need all of them. One is enough to tilt the odds in your favor. Next, we'll go deeper into one of the most misunderstood compounders, emotional intelligence. While hard skills get you in the door, EQ decides whether the door stays open. Chapter 7: Emotional Intelligence, the Hidden Dividend. In every meeting, there's a moment when logic stalls and emotion takes the wheel. Tension rises, voices harden, signals shift, some power through with facts. Others disengage. But a few change the room, not with force, but with presence. They listen without flinching, speak without provoking, and find clarity where others see chaos. This is emotional intelligence at work, and its dividends are as invisible as they are invaluable. Most people think intelligence is measured in IQ, degrees, or problem-solving speed. But the people who rise, who lead, who leave a lasting impact, more often than not, they're the ones who manage emotion, not just information. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is not softness. It's strength under control. And in a world of constant friction, it's a quiet superpower. EQ isn't one thing, it's a constellation. Self-awareness is its foundation. It begins with recognizing your own emotional patterns. Do you shut down when criticized? Do you escalate when interrupted? Do you mask discomfort with sarcasm or silence? The emotionally intelligent don't suppress emotion, they name it, and in naming it, they reduce its control. Then comes self-regulation. The pause before the reaction. The breath before the email. The ability to feel anger without becoming it. Emotionally intelligent people don't avoid strong feelings, they channel them. They know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to push and when to pivot. They steer their response instead of surrendering to it. Empathy follows. Not pity, not agreement. Empathy is the disciplined practice of seeing from another's vantage point. It's asking, what might they be feeling that I can't see? It's not about fixing emotions, it's about honoring them. Leaders who master empathy don't just get results, they build loyalty, trust, and collaboration that numbers alone can't create. Social skill is the final layer. It's the ability to navigate tension, mediate conflict, and build rapport without performance. It's not charisma. It's clarity and human interaction. It's knowing when to challenge, when to affirm, and when to redirect. The emotionally intelligent aren't loud, they're tuned in. The compounding effect of EQ is profound. It turns hard conversations into turning points. It transforms criticism into growth. It shifts workplaces from brittle to resilient, and unlike technical knowledge, which can be outsourced or automated, emotional skill remains distinctly human. It cannot be coded. It cannot be replicated. It must be cultivated. And yet, it's often overlooked. It doesn't appear on resumes. It doesn't get measured in quarterly reports. But look closer, and you'll find EQ at the center of every successful negotiation, every cohesive team, every respected leader. It's the thread that holds complexity together without breaking. The good news? EQ is learnable. It begins with paying attention, not just to others but to yourself. Keep a reflection log. After interactions, ask, what did I feel? What did they feel? What triggered it? What could I try differently next time? Emotional growth is iterative. It doesn't require perfection, only presence. In the end, EQ is less about being nice and more about being effective. It's not about avoiding conflict but engaging it wisely. It's not about suppressing feeling but understanding it. And the person who can do that consistently becomes someone others seek out, especially when the stakes are high. Ask yourself, where does your EQ serve you? Where does it sabotage you? What might change if you tuned your emotional antenna more sharply, not to react, but to respond? In the next chapter, we'll look at one of the most misunderstood forces in personal growth: failure. Because just like in investing, volatility isn't something to fear, it's something to understand. Chapter 8: The Role of Failure. Volatility is part of growth. Every long-term investor knows the rule: markets fluctuate, prices drop. Portfolios take hits, but those who stay the course, who don't panic sell during downturns, end up winning over time. The same principle applies to skills. Progress isn't linear. Growth doesn't happen without volatility. And failure, far from being a sign of weakness, is proof that you're in the game. Most people fear failure because they see it as an endpoint. A failed presentation means they aren't a good speaker. A botched negotiation means they're not persuasive. A public stumble means they're not cut out for leadership. But real learners see it differently. They understand that every skill compounds through stress. The crack isn't the collapse, it's the signal that growth is underway. Skill development mimics market behavior. At first, progress feels smooth. A few hours of practice yield visible improvement. But then comes the dip, the moment when new inputs overwhelm your old habits, when clarity turns into confusion. This is where most people quit. They mistake the turbulence for a sign to turn back, not realizing they're on the edge of a breakthrough. Failure is not a verdict, it's data. It shows you where your assumptions were wrong, where your timing was off, and where your methods broke down. And that data, if processed correctly, becomes feedback. The world's top performers, from athletes to CEOs to artists, don't avoid failure. They design their practice around it. They fail faster, smarter, and more often than anyone else. Because failure, properly metabolized, becomes refinement. There's a deeper layer, too. Failure builds emotional muscle. It strengthens resilience, tempers ego, and rewires fear. It teaches you that embarrassment isn't fatal, that disappointment doesn't disqualify you, that discomfort isn't a stop sign. Most importantly, it teaches humility, the gateway to mastery. You stop pretending you're supposed to be great on the first try, and start showing up to become great over time. Consider the failed pitch that led to a better product. The rejected application that prompted a strategic pivot. The public misstep that unlocked a new level of self-awareness. In each case, the temporary loss created long-term leverage. This is the nature of compounding. Small failures, well leveraged, produce exponential growth. But not all failure teaches. Some people repeat the same mistakes because they never pause to extract the lesson. Reflection is the differentiator. After any failure, ask, what did I try? What did I expect? What actually happened? What will I do differently next time? Without these questions, failure becomes random pain. With them, it becomes purposeful practice. You don't need to love failure. You just need to respect it. Understand that every meaningful skill carries with it the risk of short-term loss. But loss is not waste. It's tuition. You're paying for experience, insight, and calibration. The only real waste is staying safe, because safety rarely compounds. This mindset doesn't just build better skills, it builds a better relationship with yourself. You stop tying your identity to outcomes. You stop fearing the judgment of others. You become process-oriented. And when your identity shifts from being someone who succeeds to someone who grows, your potential becomes uncapped. So consider this: what failure have you been avoiding out of fear it might define you? What if it could refine you instead? What if the thing you're afraid to try is the exact thing that will unlock your next level? In the next chapter, we'll turn to the role of environment, because while internal growth matters, the soil you're planted in determines how far your roots can reach. Chapter 9: Environment is everything, design for growth. A seed holds potential, but without the right soil, sunlight, and conditions, it withers. The same is true for skills. You may have the will, the drive, even the blueprint, but if the environment doesn't support growth, progress stalls. Mastery doesn't happen in isolation. It's shaped by the space around you: physical, digital, emotional, and relational. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings shape their outcomes. They assume that discipline alone is enough, But discipline is fragile in a friction-filled environment. Try focusing on deep work in a room filled with noise. Try prioritizing growth in a culture obsessed with comfort. Try evolving when everyone around you is stuck. Without support, resistance wins. Great investors don't just buy assets, they study ecosystems. They look at the context surrounding a company. What market is it in? Who's on the team? What systems support it? You should do the same with your skills. Ask, where am I learning? Who am I learning from? What habits does my environment reward? Because the space you operate in will always shape what compounds and what withers. Start with your digital environment. Every notification is a tax on your attention. Every open tab is a vote for distraction. The design matters. Curate your inputs the way a chef selects ingredients, deliberately, seasonally, with care. Follow fewer voices, but go deeper with them. Choose tools that reduce friction. Structure your online world to mirror your future, not your past. Then look at your physical space. Clutter creates noise. Chaos consumes cognitive energy. A clean desk isn't about aesthetics, it's about availability. When the tools you need are ready and the distractions removed, focus becomes easier. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And systems begin with space. But the most powerful force in your environment isn't digital or physical, it's human. Your peer group is either your anchor or your lift. Skills are contagious. So are mindsets. Surround yourself with people who normalize growth, who reflect back your potential, and who challenge you with care. If everyone around you avoids failure, you will too. If they chase novelty over depth, you will mimic them without realizing it. But if they push, reflect, and refine, your standards will elevate automatically. Culture compounds. A single conversation can rewire your assumptions. A small group can reshape your trajectory. Even one mentor, one coach, one thought partner can accelerate your growth faster than 100 self-help books. Community isn't optional, it's strategic leverage. It provides feedback loops, accountability, and perspective. Growth thrives in relationships. Environment also includes rhythms and rituals. When do you do your deepest work? When do you review, reflect, or reset? What boundaries protect your energy? What habits open your creative bandwidth? These microstructures are often invisible but profoundly powerful. A morning routine, a weekly review, an evening walk, small signals that tell your brain, this is who I'm becoming. Most people try to change outcomes without changing environments. They chase new tactics in old spaces, but results are downstream of context. If you want different results, build a different world around you, not overnight but incrementally. One tweak at a time, one friction removed, one influence added. So ask yourself, what in your current environment supports growth? What sabotages it? What small change would make learning feel inevitable rather than optional? In the next chapter, we'll explore how to protect your progress. Because once you start compounding, the goal isn't just growth, it's avoiding decay. Chapter 10: Protecting Your Gains, Avoiding Skill Drift. Growth is exhilarating. The first breakthroughs, the steep curves, the moments when things click, they ignite motivation. But what happens after the climb? After progress feels familiar, the risk isn't failure, it's drift. Skills, like muscles, decay when neglected. Mastery fades not from dramatic loss, but from quiet erosion, and if you don't protect what you've built, compounding stalls. Skill drift doesn't announce itself. It creeps in through complacency. You stop stretching because you've reached competence. You rely on what worked instead of refining what's possible. One day you notice your writing feels rusty, your communication lacks edge, your reflexes slow. Not because you lost talent, but because you stopped using it with intention. Maintenance isn't glamorous, but it's non-negotiable. Every system trends toward entropy. Left alone, performance decays. The brain forgets. Muscles weaken. Reflexes dull. Even high performers face this. A world-class speaker who stops speaking becomes a shadow of their former self. A programmer who doesn't code for a year returns to syntax like a foreign language. Skills need movement to stay alive. But the answer isn't grinding endlessly. It's strategic maintenance. You don't need to sprint, you need to stay in motion. Like keeping a fire warm with a few well-placed logs, your goal is consistency, not intensity. a weekly writing session, a monthly presentation, a quarterly review of core concepts. Frequency sustains fluency. One powerful method is teaching. When you teach a skill, you anchor it more deeply. You're forced to clarify, simplify, and structure. You surface gaps in your understanding. You shift from consumer to creator. Teaching others doesn't deplete your skill, it reinforces it. You become sharper by helping others sharpen. Projects also protect growth. Passive review is fragile. Active creation is robust. Build something that requires your skills to stay fresh. A new deck, a prototype, a case study, a resource for others. The act of applying pressure keeps the edges sharp. Skill without use is theory. Skill under tension becomes wisdom. Another layer is feedback. Without it, you stagnate in blind spots. Feedback isn't just correction, it's calibration. It keeps your map aligned with the terrain. Seek it actively. From peers, mentors, even your past self. Ask what's working, what's weakening, and what needs refinement. Growth isn't about getting it right, it's about adjusting in real time. Habits play a role too. Small rituals keep the engine running. A 5-minute sketch before bed. A daily journal reflection. A weekly skill pulse check. These aren't just motions, they're anchors. They say, this still matters, this isn't accidental, this is being stewarded. Protecting your gains also means knowing when to evolve. Not all skill drift is negative. Sometimes it signals misalignment. The skill you once needed may no longer serve your trajectory. Letting go can be strategic too. But the key is choice, not drift. Drift is decay by default. Evolution is growth by design. Too often, people assume that once they've reached a certain level, the skill will take care of itself. But expertise is perishable. The best remain the best by showing up, especially when no one is watching. They don't chase novelty for its own sake. They deepen, refine, and revisit the fundamentals, not because they forgot, but because they respect what built them. So ask yourself, which of your current skills are drifting? Which ones need reactivation, not reinvention? What simple rhythm would keep your edge from dulling? In the next chapter, we'll explore the rebalancing principle, the art of realigning your skill portfolio with your future self. Because protecting the past is only part of the equation, positioning for what's next is how you stay ahead of the curve. Chapter 11: The Rebalancing Principle, Aligning with Your Future Self. Every investor knows that a healthy portfolio isn't static. Markets shift. Goals evolve. Risk tolerances change. So they rebalance, selling what no longer serves, reallocating toward what does. The same is true for skills. What got you here won't get you there. The abilities that once opened doors may now be holding you back. Rebalancing isn't abandoning, it's aligning. It's the intentional act of shaping your skill portfolio around the person you're becoming. Most people operate on autopilot. They build a set of strengths early in life and double down forever. At first, it works. They get hired, promoted, praised. But eventually, growth plateaus. The edge dulls. What was once a competitive advantage becomes a comfort zone. They're still working hard, but they're not moving forward. The problem isn't effort. It's misalignment. Skills are seasonal. Some serve you powerfully during one phase of life but fade in relevance as your goals evolve. The technical wizardry that launched your career may not serve your leadership ambitions. The detail-oriented execution that made you reliable may now limit your ability to delegate. The public speaking that won you the room may no longer reflect the quiet strategy you now value. Rebalancing begins with noticing this shift. It starts by projecting forward. Picture your future self 3 years ahead. What are they doing? Who are they serving? What does their average day look like? Now ask, what skills make that life possible? Which ones are non-negotiable? Which ones are missing? And which current skills are taking up space without offering return? This exercise isn't about rejection. It's about reallocation. You're not discarding your past, you're building on it. But you're choosing where to direct your energy with precision. Just like trimming a tree doesn't kill it, skill rebalancing promotes deeper, stronger growth. The challenge is that letting go feels like loss. You spent years developing certain abilities, you've built identity around them. You're known for them. But clinging too tightly to outdated skills is like refusing to sell a stock just because it once did well. Sentiment doesn't compound. Strategy does. There's also the lure of overexpansion. As you grow, more opportunities present themselves. It's tempting to collect skills like trophies, to spread your time across many domains, each with shallow depth. But mastery demands focus. Rebalancing isn't just about what to add, it's about what to subtract. Every yes is a no to something else, and if you say yes to too much, the compounders suffocate. Rebalancing requires reflection. Set a rhythm. Once a quarter, take stock. What skills have moved the needle? What have plateaued? What emerging needs require attention? Review your week through the lens of alignment. Were you practicing the right things? Or just staying busy? Direction, not motion, determines trajectory. You can also use feedback as a compass. Where are people pulling you? What do they ask for your help with? Which of your strengths still energize you? Which ones feel performative? Growth often leaves clues in conversation. Sometimes rebalancing means returning. A dormant skill may need revival. Something you once loved may now be newly relevant. Your future self isn't always someone new, it's often a clearer version of who you've always been. So ask yourself, are your current skills serving your future, or protecting your past? What would it look like to edit your skill portfolio with the same courage you used to build it? In the next and final chapter, we'll bring everything together. Because knowing what to invest in is powerful, but committing to compound relentlessly, across years, is where transformation truly lives.